Okay, everybody, welcome back to Enter the Matrix. Nikolai, we're entering
Hello
once
there,
again.
everyone. Here we are.
Here we are. And I wanted to start this episode because I wanted to take this in a little different direction. And we were talking about this literally right before hitting record, um, about how often the questions I'm posing are sort of based on real life events and things that are just in my situational awareness. And as we all know, and probably you have a bunch of friends that went, we just had Burning Man, right?
Hmm.
The sacred
I,
pilgrimage of Silicon Valley now.
I already had some questions that came into my inbox over the past couple of weeks about that. So, very relevant topic.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. And
Well,
I'm
so
pretty sure we're going to touch on some additional topics that also let's go.
let's
I'm
see
already
where it goes.
excited
Okay. Well,
because it has been top of mind in the background, given a bunch of let's call them background conversations that have been happening.
see, it's like I just read your mind. So,
Here you are.
one of the things that was sort of came to my attention is this had to do with a guest, and I just saw little bits of it, but I guess it was on Tucker Carlson's show, and just mentioning about Burning Man and how you'll have a lot of these almost like demonic things that seem to
Hmm.
be involved around what Burning Man is, right? And so in thinking about that, like I wanted to dive into sort of, you know, Burning Man, what is it? What's going on there? Um, the occult and sort of symbolism and how it all sort of ties into the Matrix. Um,
Hmm.
yeah. So let's kind of start with there and maybe
See
you
where it
you can
takes us.
unpack what you know with that, and we'll dive further from there.
Well, I would even start a little bit of an broader or meta, not just Burning Man, but generally all types of let's call them groups, organizations, festivals and etc. And what I mean by that, what we have observed, people, of course, have a tendency to unite, to share their interests, but also to navigate whatever they're facing in their life. And what I mean by that is, if we, for example, take spirituality, there is a, let's call them all types of retreats, ashrams, gurus, and etc. All types of groups that have formed to, per se, the intention was pure to help people with their ascension or awakening or whatever word you want to use. If we just describe it pragmatically, is for a person, for a physical body to connect with their consciousness.
Hmm.
Uh, and What's interesting, what we observed throughout those groups, and then I'll come to Burning Man, is that they did and do work partially, meaning they do act as a platform of at least partial progress. Some of them are very destructive and they actually work as the opposite. But people coming into that space, they get a lift. And we've previously, in the previous episodes, we've chatted about religion, and that's how religion works, right? There is a pool of people. Some of them are high vibe, some of them are low vibe. The ones that are coming in usually coming in there because they're experiencing challenges, and since they're experiencing challenges, there is a predisposition that they're lower vibe, let's say health problems, work problems, relationship problems, and etc. That means they're in there, let's call it a more negative timeline of their life scenario, or of their incarnation program. So they start seeking, and they end up in either religion or one of these retreats or one of these ashrams and etc. Given the average person in that group is probably high vibration than this person gets a lift thanks to the other people to higher level. But the key then is to exit at that time, rather than, whereas majority get addicted because they had the lift. Now they believe it's the thing that saved them will take them further. And that's that trap where most of the people get stuck in, right? And it applies, by the way, to almost everything on this planet. It could be like let's say, if it's a specific type of meditation practice that has a name and then it has an organization, it has a group, let's say TM, Transcendental
Hmm.
Meditation, that is very popular in the West. It works, it has similar tendencies, but because TM is practiced individually, it's a little bit better. So there are some group practices, but they rarely do them. But you're still connected to what we call egregor, and that egregor has a ceiling. And where I'm going with this is, um, given that the planet has been on trajectory of increasing vibration, and what's unfolding on this planet is not a fucking surprise. It's like, holy fuck, vibrations are increasing, we didn't expect this. This is thousands of years in making. And there are few things as a result of that. Um, the civilizations that have managed this planet in low vibrational space of universe knew it's coming, knew the plane will, the planet will ascend, the planet will increase in vibration, there will be transition. As a result, a lot of work has been done on this planet. And there was an agreement that nobody will be awakening on this planet during their management, or what is also called in Indian culture and Vedic culture, that is called Kali Yuga, the Dark Ages. Hence, there was a lot of stuff has been done not to permit these bodies to fully connect with their soul and spirit or with their consciousness. So, where I'm going with this, given this is few thousand years in making, all of these managers of the planet, insectoids, reptilians, greys, and etc., knew where the planet is going, and a lot of things were done to prevent the planet ascension. And there are a few ways of doing it. You keep people in really low vibration, in a state of anxiety, fear, greed, whatever. The list goes on, right?
Hmm.
Um, and that's one of the ways of slowing down the planet through its ascension. But in reality, it would have not worked out that way, because one of the timelines we were on, everything gets wiped. And that's why the civilizations here have been wiped many times, is because the planet is also advanced consciousness and it has its own evolutionary path. So if the ants that live on the planet that we call humans are not aligning with bigger trends, you just wipe them off. There's like, they're trying to destroy a planet is a planet is a higher priority and a higher value to universe than a single avatar that is not even properly connected, especially in the case where that happened. That means they were not even connected to their soul or consciousness and etc. So it's easier to just wipe them off and restart again. So where I'm going with this, all these managers have ensured that most of those religions, ashrams, group practices, and etc., have fell have been taken over under their management. And hence, if you go to, for example, like Indian ashrams and like all of those structures, most of them, like 90% plus, are under insectoid management. They give you a boost, but then you get super distorted. And one of the side effects when you go super deep into any of these, let's call them egregors, then the challenge that we're now observing consistently is, you also get, let's call them energetically brainwashed, where you actually stop being able to see other players on the planet. So, and I've seen this multiple times where they're like very close friends would come to me, like, I don't know, let's call it 4 or 5 years ago. There are reptilians, they're insectoids. Holy fuck, we gotta do something about it. And I was in state, I was like, dude, I can't figure out my head from my ass. And like, I'm not in a place to deal with reptilians or insectoids. I have very simple issues that I'm dealing with. I have health problems. I have panic attacks. And I'm like, my life is changing so drastically where everything seems to like fall apart. So, you know what? Let's put a pin in that. Let me deal with Nikolai issues first, right? And that was what happened. I dealt with Nikolai issues. and then my vibration kept increasing. Being able to sense, read energy. I could travel with my consciousness. I can basically see many more dimensions to life than what our eyes, ears, and touch and whatever, all our like basic sensations see. And then I was like, okay, yeah, there are reptilians and there are insectoids, because I started having those interactions, like those, like with people who are under their management or incarnated in those bodies, right? And I was like, whoa, after interacting with this person, I'm dead for 2 3 days, there's zero energy, what happened? And I started studying that, right? So where I'm going with this, the big side effect of succumbing to those egregors, that like religions manage, like ashrams and etc., they remove from your library ability to see them. So those same people that were screaming to me, holy fuck, there are reptilians, insectoids, and I was like, guys, chill the fuck out. Now, when I come to them, let's say now or a year ago, and I was like, yeah, there's all that, and here's what's unfolding. It's literally, when I talk about it, it goes like this. It doesn't even enter, or if it enters and enters 1 year and exits the other year, they become like they can't even see it. And by the way even our ability to interact with the world works is based on a database that exists in our consciousness. Let's say if I remove a concept of a table from a library in my consciousness, I won't be able to see. I won't be able to see the table. People think it's our eyes that actually make things possible to see. No, eyes don't really see anything. Everything gets processed at the level of consciousness energetically. And that's why if you really look at the studies by like, or the research that all the CIA, KGB did, and they declassified a lot of it, is like they say that this whole planet is a hologram. Yeah, everything is a hologram. We perceive that it's a physical element. In reality, when I touch this, it's a gravity that creates a sensation that this is hard, but in reality, it's not hard. It's just the specific atoms are pushing back on atoms in my finger, right? So hence what we observed, and let's tie it. It's a little bit a long preamble to talk about Burning Man. Where I'm going, Burning Man is okay. So this is just another group that came together. But out of all of those that I mentioned, I'd say Burning Man is probably the lowest vibration structure that you can fucking put together. Okay, I shouldn't talk about the original version of that. There were some great intentions that were loaded into it. And like, I've been to Burning Man only once in 2018. And already by 2018, it was basically 70 to 80% straight up rave slash sex slash art festival. And where, like, basically it's interesting. So let me unpack Burning Man more specifically now. So that place is a feast for all types of entities, because most of people are in an altered state of consciousness. And by the way, when you're in an altered state of consciousness, that's where you're exposed the most. An altered state of consciousness, the way I would describe it. So, for example, people who do ayahuasca, people, oh, like I drank some fucking tea and I puked and shut my pants and then I had this transformation. No, you drink ayahuasca, you basically, what happens energetically, you get cut up and open. It's an energetic surgery. And now imagine you're having an energetic surgery in a fucking tent with 500 homeless people around you, you know?
Oh God.
And that's basic and goes beyond, right? And that's Burning Man, because most of people are in an altered state of consciousness, and you're just like basically all open energetically. You've been all caught up energetically, and anything and everything can basically enter you and attach to you. And by the way, some and many people return not being themselves. And there are many examples of that. And what that means, by the way, that brings us to a very important construct that we've discussed in some earlier episodes. This body is just a bioenergetic suit that allows us to play the game in this sector of universe. So when we an altered state of consciousness, that means whatever that our consciousness that was managing that suit goes elsewhere. So the house or the vessel is kept semi-empty and anybody can enter and take it under management. So, and sometimes the soul doesn't even manage to go back. Most of the times what happens is, yes, your consciousness gets back into this vessel, but there are already other inhabitants. And I think the whole story in Spanish real estate is great, right? I don't remember the term, where like if somebody basically breaks into the house and starts leaving them, you cannot kick them out. And there is a term for that.
Squatting.
And similar in North America, like in for example, I spend a lot of time in Toronto. You can't even kick out tenant when they stop paying rent. If you own a rental property, given now today's landlord laws, it's almost impossible to kick them out. And I faced that situation personally. Like I literally had to pay off the tenant to move out, even when the house was sold. It was just insane. So where I'm going was that when your consciousness went out because you took LSD, MDMA, whatever, mushrooms, whatever, anybody enters your body, and many of those entities just stay, and your new consciousness comes back, and now your personality has changed and shifted. And the reason it changed and shifted because it's not only your consciousness that managing that vessel, there's another bunch of entities that are managing that vessel, and that shapes your identity, your personality, and etc. So if I would summarize the energetic part of Burning Man, it's like it's a energetic orgy of homeless people and all types of destructive entities, and and nobody knows what a condom is. Basically, there's like no protection. Everybody's just fucking each other and exchanging energies, and then when they get back, they're surprised that they're different or something else is going on. It's like there's also this whole concept of Burning Man decompression. Like people think it's because of like overstimulus that they need to decompress for a week. Like I've experienced it personally. Luckily, I had a bunch of fucking concussions leading up to Burning Man, so I couldn't take any substances. So the only thing I could do is drink beer and sometimes have a puff of a joint. And like more or less most of the Burning Man I was sober, or like 90 to 80% sober. And that's an example how Matrix organized things in such a way that I didn't end up having an orgy with homeless people, like, but with that said, I was still there. I was still exposed to that, but my exposure was, let's call it a light version, 2 or 3 out of 10. Whereas for majority of attendees, the exposure is 7 to 11. And so when people have this decompression, that's because, first of all, they gave away most of their energy to some fucking randos, like random people or random entities, destructive consuming entities. And for those destructive entities, either it's just organic entities that feed on all types of energies. And by the way, every human, same as we in our microbiome in our stomach, we have all types of bacteria to help us digest and blah blah blah. Where we exist right now, people who see energy, sense energy, they realize that this space, especially in the cities, is filled with all types of energetic entities, but most of them are organic. So let's say if Nikolai expresses a lot of anger, there's an entity that loves the energy of anger. It attaches to me and it starts living in me to actually help me so that I don't completely lose my shit from anger all the time. It eats the anger, so I only like spill out a percentage of anger onto other people. Whereas there, in addition to all of those entities that are more symbiotic or organic, there's a where you started your question. It's a feast for destructive, let's call it demonic, and demonic is not the right terminology. By the way, demon is actually a positive term that got a bad PR from church, but let's call them and I can unpack that later. Let's call them destructive energies that can do substantially bigger damage to your energetic structure, to your psyche, to your emotional state, to your energetic capacity. And that's why people after Burning Man have to really fucking get their shit together in this decompression, because they walk out being completely sucked out of energy, bunch of new things attached to them. So now their personality has shifted and it has to integrate. Before we got on the call, we talked about my integration. I'm right now going through, let's call it a week plus of integration, because I've done a lot of healing on myself, and that is positive integration.
Yeah.
In that scenario, it's not a positive integration. You're basically now have bunch of squatters, energetic squatters, now using this vessel as well. You have a bunch of new energetic connection that take energy out of you, and etc. So in a nutshell, that's what Burning Man today is. And we had some clients who go there consciously, but basically you can go to those. It's not like we're saying, yo, don't go, it's the worst fucking thing ever. No, when you go to such places with knowledge and consciously, you'll be fine. Like just you have to be always aware where you are, who you are with, what you're consuming, and etc. And we prepared, like I clearly remember, we prepared one of our clients. We gave him like all the, let's call them we explain to them that there's such a concept as energetic condom and how to use it while you're potentially exposed to all the orgies, energetic orgies, and not only energetic, right? There are real physical
Yeah,
orgies on
I was
every
gonna say,
fucking
you're when you say that, you're talking about
uh,
something that is literal and metaphorical, right? Like, there
yes,
is the
yes.
actual orgy dome, apparently, that blew over, apparently, from the sandstorm. I
Yeah,
thought that was
yeah, yeah. I
funny.
saw that. I saw that, I think, on Instagram or somewhere. And but people think, oh, I don't participate in all these orgies. I'm like, let me put it this way: the physical orgy might be the least of your concerns. You fucking tripping balls on mushrooms with some randos can have much worse impact than you going into that orgy dome. With that said, um, sexual connection is the one of the deepest energetic connections you can form with another human. And as a result, that just magnifies everything. So, energetic orgies, physical orgies, and a feast of destructive entities basically just leads to humans that come out different, and their behavior changes, their perception changes, their desires change. As an example, just today I saw the new study. 7.8%, I think it's 2022 or 23, of Americans identified as LGB, whatever, all those letters. I can't even fucking
Yeah,
get those
yeah, yeah.
letters. Yeah. And 20% of the new generation identify with that.
Yeah.
And finally, people are starting to catch on onto the fact that all of those, I don't know, 50 genders plus sexual preferences is actually mental health problem. That's, if we use modern day terms, mental health problem. In reality, it's a fucking energetic problem that leads to this type of preferences, identification, and etc. And part of that is going to places like Burning Man and getting exposed to all these entities that now start basically telling you, oh, you might not be a man, I'd like to express as a woman. And that's not even your soul. That's not even your consciousness. That's just a fucking entity that introduces a different type of energy and wants to have specific type of experience. And here you go. You're going for a fucking roller coaster in your life. Now, out of nowhere, you're a man. Like what are the Matrix? The guys who shot the Matrix, they were Wachowski
Oh,
brothers. Now
yeah.
they're
Yeah,
Wachowski sisters, right?
yeah.
Here
Which
you
is
go. This
crazy
is
enough if you wanted to go, let's think about that one for a minute.
here you go. So I'll pause here. So that's basically Burning Man with a bit of a preamble and some specifics.
Yeah, so, um, going down that rabbit hole a little further, so why specifically, if because when I first found out about it,
Mhm.
which was around 2008, 2009, because I'd never heard of Burning Man before, and a lot of people that I knew from San Francisco, especially, where there was always the pilgrimage to Burning Man, right?
Yep.
um, and and I don't know if that's also because a lot of Burning Man sort of aligns with, if we're just going to put them in a box for a second, sort of more leftist ideological thinking, but
Mm.
for sure, all these different people, they went to Burning Man, and these were on the surface. I mean, I know a lot of these people, they're, in some form of spirituality, or they call themselves very spiritual, and it's so kumbaya, and
Spiritual, quote
yeah,
unquote.
spiritual. And so the question I have is, well,
Yeah.
what is it? Why are all these quote unquote spiritual people so emphatic? I mean, they make all the, like, even now I saw on Facebook, like, all the different posts and all the things, and they go to such a level, and then it's almost like they get there, and of course they're doing the orgies, they're tripping balls, and then they're giving very big philosophical talks. They got the microphone and they're teaching the masses while they're wearing a G-string and some goggles on top of their heads.
Yeah,
And,
I
and,
think
and
that's a
tell me,
great.
like, what
Yeah.
is the draw for like, I get the draw because, I mean, full disclosure, I had my period about, 2000, it was 2013 to 14, 15, where I was like, man, I discovered MDMA. Let's go to the raves. And I was at every big rave. I was
Yeah.
all amongst the entities, tell you, baby. Because I was like, I'm at
Well, now
EDC
you're
every,
paying the price for all the coaches and all the
yeah,
modalities that you pay for to harmonize yourself back
yeah.
to the original state before you went to all the raves. And by
But
the way, I did my fair share of bullshit as well.
yeah. So I've done that, but what I want to know is, like, why? Yeah, what is the
Mhm.
what is the draw specifically for the spiritual people then to go? Because I understand the draw for the people that they just want to party, they want to rave. Like, I would kind of get that. Like, okay, there's all the
Yeah.
art. There's.
By the way, art is surreal and spectacular there.
Oh,
I
I'm
would like
sure. I'm
it's
sure.
like, yeah, mind
Um,
blowing.
So yeah, I mean, it's like if it was a party, purely a party, I would totally get it. Like, let's look at some art, let's take some drugs, let's
Yeah.
party. But the thing that I don't get is the spiritual people, and the spiritual people are so emphatic about going, like it is almost like it is a spiritual quest of sorts. And I don't know what if you can talk about that
Yeah.
somewhat.
Yeah. So first of all, the definition of spiritual people. Right now, spiritual people definition is very broad, and most of them are actually not spiritual at all. They're actually more unspiritual than they are spiritual. But they got the out. They've been to few ashrams. They've done few retreats. They did bunch of ayahuasca mushrooms and etc. And they bought the beats and the outfits, right? And now they call themselves spiritual. Let me put it this way. On average, that person is less spiritual than an average human you can grab in an average village of America or Europe. And they are actually, I would even call, further away from spiritual, and they got confused and lost. So that this whole concept of defining spirituality is, and that's why it's like almost I call it every industry goes through its cycles where, AI is right now going through a cycle of a bubble and everybody is a fucking AI genius and everybody perceives we're close to AGI. In reality, and I had a great expression somewhere, I don't remember where, I think it was on X. It's basically, if you look at the data sources, like ChatGPT, Grok, and etc., is just a fancy Reddit and YouTube wrapper,
Yep.
because most of the data gets taken from that. And that's what I was intuitively sharing with all in our previous episodes with people I know. Even like a few years ago, there was this gathering of entrepreneurs, influencers in New Zealand when AI was just like starting to pop off. And I was like, guys, this is just a fancy calculator. And now we're finally getting to people realizing this. So coming back to the spiritual people, let's trace back uh, the how they became spiritual. And that's, I guess, I did not share the long preamble about Burning Man randomly, because a lot of those people became spiritual either through these, let's call them retreats, ashrams, or teachings, guru based teachings, or psychedelics. And those are the two camps. And if you take California, you can perfectly fit almost 80 to 90% of spiritual into either of these two camps. They went to some fucking ashrams, or they went to some kind of guru teachings or whatever, or they did a bunch of psychedelics, or both. And so let's start with the first group that went through ashrams and etc. Given all of those egregors, they are not knowledge egregors. They are what we call is discernment egregors. And by the way, when I talk about religion on all these ashrams and all these guru-based teachings, I'm not shitting on them. You just have to understand what it is. It is a discernment egregor, and what it means, it's gonna take you for a fucking ride, so you develop a discerning mind of what works and what doesn't work. And so the first group, guru teachings, ashrams, blah blah blah, under management of insectoids, reptilians, and etc., creates an illusion of awakening. In some scenarios, subset of people actually do increase in vibration, but what we've seen, the maximum vibration you can reach through those today on the planet is around 7, and they cannot surpass 7 because that's the maximum vibration those civilizations can manage. Anything beyond that, it's hard to reach. For them, it's unreachable because they cannot exist at a higher vibration than that. So they will, if you're coming in at a vibration of 5 megahertz, and this is a separate technical terminology, it's etheric body vibrates at a specific level. It's an indication the amount of energy you can put through your body. And that, by the way, if we would describe it in day-to-day human words, that's what we call happiness. The more energy you can put through your body, basically the high vibration you are, the more consistent and deeper the state of happiness that you experience. So the highest they can go is around, let's call it plus minus 7 megahertz, and they can enter at 5 and they can get to 7. So it is significant growth. So that instrument does work up to a point. However, most of them fall into the trap. Holy fuck, that'll help me go from 5 to 7. Now I have some of my capabilities activated. Now I kind of sense energy and I have some knowledge and blah blah blah, and hence they start worshiping that structure, and now they're trapped. They cannot go beyond 7. And I call that illusionary awakening, because they kind of awaken, but not fully. And now they think they have awakened. And as part of that illusionary awakening, they got a pretty big fucking ego, because now
Mm.
they're the shit comparing to the plebs, or what do they call them in a bunch of my friends use, because I'm not a Harry Potter guy. I think they call them
Oh, I
muggles,
don't know. I never
or something
watched
like.
Harry Potter either. So
Yeah,
yeah.
so apparently that's now a term that people use for an average person who is not spiritual. They call them muggles or something like that.
Huh.
uh, and um, and so, but in reality, yes, some of them increased in vibration, plus they got ego, plus they have this illusion of awakening, but in reality they don't really got awakened. And usually what happens as part of that, they also taught a bunch of things that allows to take a bunch of their energy out, and those teachings have a distortion, so that person who seemingly has awakened can be managed by those entities still. And they won't go beyond the border where they cannot manage them. Because if they go beyond like 7, 8, 9, then you start, when you reach, let's say, let's call it 8 vibrational level and plus, you start managing the game rather than the game start manages you. You kind of rise. You know, a lot of people try to exit the matrix, and we joked in the first episode, you can't exit the matrix because it's just an operating system.
Yeah.
That's what they're actually desiring. When you get to a really high vibration, you're still in a matrix, but now you can manage a lot of processes in the matrix. So the perception is you exit it, because you're vibrating so high, you're above that, so you can see all these entities, you can see what all these egregors are trying to do with you, how they're trying to change your perception, identity, personality, how they try to take energy. And now you become your own boss. And I was like, let's say egregor of alcohol, I'm not giving you energy. If I'm gonna drink, and I'm not surrendering my body under the management of alcohol when I drink it, I just take the benefits of, let's say, relaxation, energetic channel expansion, and I give you a little bit energy in exchange, because there always has to be energetic exchange, but I don't give you everything you want to take. So So that's that. Let's talk about the second group, psychedelics. That's even more fucking dangerous.
Mm.
So here, at least people like hopefully got some knowledge as part of all the teachings, gurus, and ashrams and retreats and etc. So they're a little bit more clued in. But because of the knowledge, sometimes they can be even more uh, like they can have bigger spiritual ego, and it's a little bit harder to deal with them and harder to pop them out of that state because they think now they know everything. So they get stuck. So that's one way of getting stuck. The psychedelic, illusionary, awakened avatars, per se, um, are very interesting ones because what happens there? So all these egregors, like so, ayahuasca, MDMA, mushrooms, and etc. That is also an egregor. That's an energetic entity that manages that part of the game. It's like same. It's like an application and an operating system, right? So a lot of people don't realize. People who went through awakening or attribute a lot of their awakening, for example, to ayahuasca, they don't know that it was managed by reptilians originally. Now it's managed mostly by insectoids plus reptilians. Reptilians already kind of like um, very extensively pushed out or lost their strength on this planet, or losing the strength on their planets and insectoids are the most advanced out of, like, if we just take three major one: greys, reptilians, and insectoids. Insectoids manage reptilians and greys, and the planet was divided between reptilians and greys. East was greys, west was reptilians, and all the party is managed by insectoids. So if you look at ayahuasca, egregor of ayahuasca is managed by reptilians and ultimately insectoids. And people who awaken through that, I observe some very interesting patterns. And that's going to bring us to more specifics of your question, where those often those substances or plant medicine dissolve your ego. So now we have the opposite of the first group, where it actually dissolves the ego, and ego should not be dissolved because then you become a fucking vegetable and it becomes even easier to manage you. So, and I just had an interaction a couple of weeks ago where the ego was dissolved. So, ego should be harmonized and understood, not dissolved. Distortions should be dissolved. And that's what people misunderstand. They think, and that's where another distortion of definition has really messed with people's understanding what's unfolding, because everybody in spirituality talks about dissolving the ego, and same as, like, demons got bad PR from religion, ego got bad PR from all these fucking spiritual people and people
Mm.
dancing and singing kumbaya. Ego is the way we function and interact with this world. And there are three levels of ego, and we've chatted about it in previous episodes: ego of the mind, ego of the soul, and ego of the spirit. All of them have ego. If you permit and you set an intention to dissolve it, you start basically dissolving yourself. Basically, the command you're launching is command of self-destruction. So, oh, you don't want to exist? Don't exist. Less advanced, powerful souls here, easier for us to manage the planet and other fucking idiots on the planet. So, and now I've seen so many people who went deep into ayahuasca or, well, some of those plant medicine, where they basically, important parts of the ego were basically per se dissolved, or it was so deeply entrenched, reprogrammed, their energetic structure was so deeply reprogrammed that they perceive that the ego doesn't exist. And now they're just this vegetable that can be pushed around by those structures that did it in the first place. And the second thing they do on those ayahuasca trips and etc., and it's funny, people before ayahuasca, they're like, there are reptilians, there are insectoids, and there are all types of destructive energies and etc. By the way, they're there. In the beginning, I was like, yeah, okay, whatever, is bullshit. But once you get to a specific level of sensitivity, which activates your extrasensory capabilities, and you start discerning one human body from another human body, you start noticing all the fucking differences. And then you're like, whoa, now I get it. So these people who are noticing and seeing all that before ayahuasca, they're like, yeah, this person is managed by reptilian entity. It's like, yeah, it is, and it's part of part of the game. There's nothing to freak out about. You just now have to consciously interact with that being, because that being, um, through this avatar, their desire is to take maximum amount of energy from you. So hence they want to trigger you, they want to like do all types of stuff. So you open up, or give you some pill. So you open up and they can take maximum energy. And then the same people who see all that, goes through ayahuasca, multiple ayahuascas, come out, and they're blind. I'm like, hey, you're the one screaming that there are reptilians and all that. There's like, or that there are these destructive entities. They're like, they don't even answer anything. It's insane. It's like talking to a robot. They just like ignore that part of a conversation as if they didn't hear it. And this is an example. As part of those ceremonies, that part of the library gets removed. So they don't even hear the fucking words. And I've seen this now with many people around me, people who I know closely, people who I don't know closely. And I just started observing the pattern. And I was like, whoa, that's what happens there. So now basically you have two groups of illusionary awakened people who actually become, well, first group I'd say it has at least a little bit more capability left because the ego is still intact. The
Hmm.
other group became this fucking jello that can be pushed around and managed. And part of these desires of going places to like Burning Man is because those places are managed by those destructive entities. And you've already had a bunch of programs installed from them. So guess what are you going to choose? That now your personality has been changed, your identity has been changed, and that pulls you to where more can be taken from you, more can be put into you. So you're further managed, uh, further overridden, further you become less yourself and become this other type of entity. And that actually brings me to AIDS and HIV. And if you look deeply into, because all the disease, and we talked about it in the episode about health, all the disease start at the energetic level. So any kind of autoimmune disease, and especially in a scenario of AIDS or HIV, is uh, basically the being decides that it's a different being. So let's say somebody decides, rather than being a man, decides that it's a woman. That launches a self-destruction of the existing body, trying to become another body.
Mm.
And hence it creates predisposition for all types of autoimmune diseases, because you're basically saying, I'm not a man, I am a woman. And that launches a process to destroy everything in the body that doesn't fit that worldview. And everything in this universe is created with a thought. That's why, and that's what all the spirituality also teaches, and that's correct. And when that thought says, I'm this, it just creates autoimmune. Or I'm like, I'm a cat, not a human. Okay, let's give you a bunch of autoimmune so you actually self-destroy. And hence in all those circles, there's a lot of not only mental health issues, and if you really look at the stats, like the suicidal rates and LGD, whatever, all of those letters, right,
Hmm.
is through the roof. Autoimmunes like HIV, AIDS through the roof, and the list goes on. So yeah, so basically now you have these two groups that were indoctrinated by already those destructive entities, and the destructive entities throw a party for a week in a year. And of course, they want all of their slaves, and that's basically what it is, energetic slaves, to show up at the party and to donate more energy and to pick up more bullshit. So that's hence we are where we are.
So it's an energetic slave trade of sorts. Um, Couple things. There's so much there to unpack. You had mentioned the piece about thoughts, and I just wanted to quick little tangent there where you were talking about all these different things, um the uh the autoimmune issues
Yep.
and all sorts of issues start with the thought, right? And
Yeah.
spirituality starts with the idea of the thought. Is it just the thought, or is it the verbalized thought?
Uh, yes. So thought is in this sector, in this body where we exist, there needs to be a thought, a feeling, and a sound. Because what you basically do, thought is the way I would describe it, thought is a blueprint of what you're creating or what you're
Hmm.
manifesting. Um, Feeling is a building material, it's energy, what you're charging with, and what kind of qualities that blueprint is. It going to be, let's say, is this house going to be green from from some kind of wood with like red roof, or is it going to be from like cement and blah blah blah, right? And
Hmm.
that's your feeling. And the last thing, because what we call is the world of forms, and in reality is just a dense energy. You need to pull that from the energetic plane, which is a thought and a feeling. Is just very, let's call it, uh, not dense energy. We need to pull it to the world of dense energy, and hence we create a sound. But the way it ultimately works, people without realizing speak about things, and whatever you say is manifestation. Because let's say you had a thought, now you're emotional about it, and now I'm sharing it, let's say, with Mitch. That's it, manifestation has started. It's like, let's say we're chatting with you and I'm like, oh, I'm confused about my gender and I think I'm this. You've started manifestation, you've started the destruction process of the current version of your body. And then all the hell breaks loose, because the body was designed originally to have specific purpose, and now all these energetic, mental, psychological problems initiate as part of that. And that's why people end up killing themselves or losing it, or they're like super, like they're like on so many prescription drugs to keep their sanity, and the list goes on.
So, if we're talking about the sound, could we also, for example, could it be we have the thought, we have the feeling about that, and we create a sound, like maybe we're like knocking on the desk or we're doing
Yeah,
something, or
yeah.
is it, would that be the same, or is it that we
If that's how
really want
you've
to speak it
programmed
out?
it, if you programmed, like if you basically consciously choose, if I do this, manifestation starts. Okay, you made that decision. Now whatever I think and put a feeling there, and I do this, manifestation started. I don't need to pronounce. But because most people are unconscious, are not, or not fully conscious, usually the way they manifest is by speaking about it.
Got it.
So it's more conscious people that basically create a mechanism. So by speaking about things, they don't launch manifestations. They create, only manifestation should be launched when I snap the fingers. Everything else
Mm.
is just me venting about bullshit. And that creates that safety mechanism.
Ah, okay. Gotcha, gotcha, gotcha. And did I ever tell you the story of the time when I had coffee with a murderer?
I don't think so.
Oh, okay. I won't make it too long, but you had mentioned, for example, where you are around, the insectoids and this and that, and you got a feeling, right? And I remember distinctly, who knows what energy
Yeah.
was around this guy, but I definitely had this feeling
Mm.
where I was like, it was just strange, but I was like, something's off about this guy. And it was actually, it was a big news thing in America and Canada, because he was Canadian, right?
Mm.
So this guy, um uh uh you, you would have remembered the name, or if you Google it, his name was Ryan Jenkins,
Mm.
and he is from Calgary, or around Calgary. And of course, I was the porn actor living down in downtown Los Angeles. And this guy, I can't remember if I think it was, I got an email, or if I got a text. I can't remember how it was. And because apparently he did know people that I knew in Calgary, but like loosely, but
Mm.
knew them, right? So it's like, hey, I'm friends with so and so. And of course, you drop a name that I know. It'd be like if somebody said, hey, I'm a buddy of Nikolai's. I'd be like, okay, I'll answer your thing, right? I know Nikolai, right? And yeah, and he, came from some kind of wealthy family and had been on some TV show and all this stuff. And um, he's like, yeah, I just want to meet up. And I was like, okay, fine, meet up a friend for coffee. But I remember getting this energy where I was like, right, and I had the coffee and everything, and the funny thing is, he's it's a very weird thing that I would sometimes deal with where I could be around somebody who was more wealthy, more powerful, whatever, and they would get sort of like insecure in a way towards me, like they got to prove something to me,
Mm,
right? So of course
yeah.
he's got his phone. He's like, "Oh yeah, I'm going on dates with this girl," and I remember seeing the photo of this girl, right? I was like, "Okay, that me, I'm like, I don't care." I'm like, "Yeah, that's great, good for you, man."
Yeah. Yeah.
And he kept pushing me because he's like, "Well, I know you shoot movies, like you can rent my," and he had some penthouse apartment in Beverly Hills, "Yeah, for free, come." And I was like, no, no, I just for some reason I was like, there's some energy where I'm just like, I just didn't it's like I did the coffee, but
Dodge the bullet.
I just don't wanna be friends, and I couldn't explain why because none of
Yeah.
it made sense. It's like, "Oh, man, guy's giving me free location," like, he wants to do all these things, and I'm just like,
No.
"Something's off," right? And this was a while later when because it started in that kind of LA, right? I was remember
Mm.
looking at the newspaper, and it was like there was this now manhunt, and it became big news because um they found the remains of a girl in a dumpster. I think she was all cut up, but specifically all the teeth and fingertips were removed
Whoa.
and beyond
That's
recognition. So
intense.
you can't and cut up at least enough that I think it fit in a bag or a suitcase. I don't know. I'd have to go back into the details, right? But
Yeah.
definitely like the whole process. So nobody could identify this person was done. Like gnarly shit, right? And of course they identified her from her breast implants,
Wow. Yeah. Makes sense. Makes sense. They have
right?
IDs, right?
Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
and they put the picture, and I just remember going through the newspapers like because I'd seen that person. Like
Mm.
he showed me, and it was like, and
Yeah.
then it all came out, and it was a big manhunt, and he made his way all the way back up to Canada, and then he hung himself in a hotel room someplace when they were catching
Getting
on to
closer.
him. Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah. But it was. Anyways, it was just funny to have that experience of feeling some kind of energy that immediately, like, I didn't even know what it was. I was just like,
No.
something about this. And
And
yeah,
so
and
a great example when you're altered state of consciousness, that compass is gone.
oof,
Why do you think like so many, I don't know, criminals, murderers, and etc. use drugs? Right? The person's state of consciousness gets altered, so their intuition shuts off, and now you can pull them into anything. Okay, in a scenario of a murderer, it's let's call it a an extreme physical damage, right? Uh, Whereas in a scenario of Burning Man, it's extreme energetic damage that plays out over years, which I, in some scenarios, could argue is even worse. Because in one scenario, okay, you exited incarnation and it was an unpleasant exit. At least it was short. Whereas here, a lot of your life starts breaking down or getting distorted, and you're constantly starting to face all types of negative experiences. And that's where it's like death by thousand paper cuts, and now it becomes a question: what's what's better, right? And of course, it's personal preference, but that's where this issue is of places like Burning Man, like music festivals. If you're going there, go there consciously, watch other YouTube videos, how you can prepare yourself, cleanse. And actually, maybe I'll chat about that so it becomes a little bit more practical because we kind
yeah,
of took a big dump on Burning Man. But then at the same time, I said it's a great experience from, like, say, art standpoint of view if you go there consciously, right? So, number one is if you're going to do altered state of consciousness there, do it somewhere in the middle of a desert where there's no other people, and there hopefully somebody else who can manage your that container and that field. And somebody has to be really legit and actual spiritual, not illusionary spiritual or illusionary awakened. So that minimizes the risk. Otherwise, preferably you don't go into altered state of consciousness, or if you do, you have to be at such a level of consciousness where you can actually manage all the energetic interactions. And like the last time I did something that put me in an altered state of consciousness. Well, alcohol puts people in an altered state of consciousness, but I know how to manage it. So as a result, I don't really get drunk. Similarly, like if you take like some other stronger substances, last time I did it was a while back ago, and I was already at a pretty advanced level. And I just like could fully manage my consciousness, my energetic capabilities, and etc. So if you're at that level, then you probably know everything you need to know. If you're not, just don't do it. And besides that, since you're still exposed to all these destructive entities, other people, and etc., your intention is to keep yourself together. And what I mean by that is um, okay, altered state of consciousness, you're like being fully open and anything and everything can happen to you. If you're not in altered state of consciousness, the way then those entities work, they trigger you. If you get triggered, you open up at least a little bit and you get a connection. So you just stay in a um, open-minded, curious, accepting state. Hence, you're less triggered, but not open at the same time. Because people, this whole concept of open your heart, that's exactly how a bunch of bullshit gets re-encoded in people. So, by the way, most of the like now modern day spiritual practices are all about opening heart, and the reason they want that because that's like basically heart is a central connection and the biggest connection. So it's like basically what they're saying is give me your pin to your energetic bank account when they say open your heart, and we'll do whatever fuck we want with you and your energy. So with this concept of open heart, no, you only open heart selectively to people who you trust, who you align with, who you want to connect with, and etc. And if you know who you're connecting with, you're just basically giving away your pin. Like, and it's funny. I was telling somebody, it would be cool if people could have this their energy that's in their body as an app on their phone, as same as their bank account app, and it showed like, okay, you have 1,500,000 energy dollars, and when you go to Burning Man, you basically go, here's my pin and here's my everything. Do whatever fuck you want. People would have
Spend,
treated
baby,
it
spend.
exactly. People would have treated all of those situations differently. So coming back to practicality, minimize altered state of consciousness. Number two, stay basically aligned and sovereign. And what I mean by that is have all types of interactions you want, but just be thoughtful about that. If people try and trigger you, pull you into all different things, you're like, at least your intuition is still there. You're like, thanks. It was a cool conversation. That's enough, right? And then so the more you stay in that, the less crap you'll pick up. And the last piece, just cleanse after. Hopefully you have access to some kind of energetic practitioners, and call them and ask them to cleanse you and harmonize you. So it will more or less bring you back to the original state. You'll still pick up a bunch of stuff, but it will not be significant because the only stuff then the person picks up is what attaches to their inharmonies. And everybody has inharmonies in their personality. Let's say they could be triggered by, I don't know, a beautiful woman that rejects them. They get triggered. That creates a little rupture in their energetic system where things can connect. But they can't really overtake you because it's more of a connection, take energy out, or like it might loop it, for example, install energetic implant, but it's not going to be as extreme as altered state of consciousness and energetic orgies and or physical orgies. So it's pretty simple. Still go do that. Then just stay like in your sovereign state, in your intuition, in your discerning mind, and then cleanse after that. And here you go. You went to a festival, enjoyed some art, enjoyed some weird, interesting people, and came back yourself. And I'd say many people uh, there's a actually significant subset of original burners who like don't take drugs, don't drink, and that's their experience. And I was exposed to that as well, and it's a completely different experience, right? But if you've done drugs and a bunch of other things, then you probably need a more serious um, practitioner to cleanse you. And the the shitty part is, as I mentioned, it's a long playing game, right? You might pick up a bunch of crap that starts changing your perception and identity, and it takes time. Sometimes it will take years. Sometimes it's faster. In a matter of a month, you start noticing you have like new types of desires, new types of perceptions, new types of predispositions. And if you start sensing that, and those desires, predispositions are not heading necessarily in the most positive direction, or not something you previously were attuned to, then seek help. That means you're basically, there's other more powerful entities that are starting to manage your vessel, which is your body and your mind, and
Mhm.
then seek help. And as an example, we've worked with a bunch of people, not post all types of psychedelic or plant medicine ceremonies, and it takes, for some of them, it took year plus to fully recover.
Wow.
And some people had very extreme scenarios where like basically their body was like heavily captured, and like there would like basically the person couldn't even be themselves. And that's, by the way, leads to things like what is it called, the borderline personality disorder. That's all energetic. People think, oh, it happened randomly. No, you have another soul or entity now occupying part of your body, and it expresses yourself, let's say, when you get angered, right? You get triggered and you get angry, and that thing takes over you and it manages your body. And here's what it is. And like, I've dated somebody who was kind of that way, and I was like for 3 hours she would be the like the nicest, the wisest, the smartest woman ever, and 2 minutes later she would be the most I don't know, I don't even have the words, like aggressive, negative, trying to harm type of a person.
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa, what is going on here? And that's that example. And by the way, it's all addressable. And now, given there are more practitioners, there's more knowledge, there's like if you discover that about yourself and you've been to all of those festivals, and I'm not just talking about personality, borderline personality disorder, I'm talking about any kind of psychological, emotional, mental issues that you've been observing, that you've been having trouble navigating, and you've used the Western approach of psychology field, which is a separate conversation. um, Seek alternative modalities, and there's a higher chance you'll be able to address that.
All right. And lastly, what I wanted to close out here with, because you sort of brushed into it, and I wanted to
Yeah.
get your 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 definition actually.
Mm,
So so what actually is the definition of spiritual? Because you had touched on there, we
mm,
have this concept of illusory
yeah.
versus legitimate. And it's like, even if I was to look at, for example, the people, they got the beads, they got the, oh, they're, going all crazy, right?
Yeah,
Which is
yeah,
fine, right? Because
yeah.
I mean, I would look at myself and I would say I'm kind of a spiritual person, but I wouldn't, if somebody saw me, they wouldn't be, oh, that guy's super spiritual. Nobody's going to go out there saying that, but I have my own version of a internal sense of seeking, right? Or trying to
Mhm.
understand, or so tell me, like, from your perspective, what is that definition of spiritual?
Yeah, so to give a proper definition of spiritual, we should go back to the a fundamental construct of a human being. It is three components: mind, that manages the physical body; soul; and the spirit. So, spiritual is ultimately the one that reached the synchronization with the spirit. It's the ultimate level, which very few people on this planet have reached. Then we say there is such a person what we call soulful, but those are people that are very friendly, open, and etc. That is actually an indication they reached their soul level and they became open. And by the way, that's to get stuck there, it's also not very harmonious and a bit more dangerous, because then people want to interact with anything and everyone without necessarily having complete knowledge, and that's when they become the closest friends with all types of dark people, destructive entities, because it's also part of experience. And by the way, soul wants to have that experience, because if you can navigate that experience, it's some of the biggest growth. And by the way, just to put a positive note on everything we've talked about, if you went through all of this experience, by the way, which I've done, like plant medicine, Burning Man, all types of festivals, the list fucking goes on, tried all types of practitioners and etc. As long as you understand that it's an experience of discernment where you're developing your discernment capabilities and you continue moving and seeking and moving along and expanding and learning and evolving, great. If you get stuck, that's where it gets shitty. Um, and so all that experience, like, if you're listening to this and you had all this experience, don't be down on yourself. You have great material to work with. That means you already have a lot of amazing experience that should be reviewed, uh, reanalyzed, and reintegrated. And all of those experiences you had were just teaching you very important things about different types and qualities of energies. And that's why we never discredit any kind of experience. Any kind of experience is super powerful. And that's why it brings me, when a person is soulful, the soul wants to pick up all types of nasty and type of experience, because a lot of times it pushes you to learn to discern very rapidly. Because if you have a very drastic change of state, let's say you were like on average optimistic normal person, and then you go to Burning Man, come back, and you become, let's say, very moody, aggressive, or like some other things start happening. For soul, it's like, holy fuck, this is great. Now the person is actually pushed to figure this out, and if they don't figure it out, well, tough luck. And especially for advanced and big souls, they have other avatars. It's like, well, this one didn't work out, write it off. And the soul just writes off that avatar. It's super pragmatic. So coming back to spiritual is the last level. When you've synchronized, now you consciously understand your mind and the ego of your mind. You consciously understand your soul and the ego of the soul. And then you got to spirit, and you understand what spirit is and the ego of the spirit. And just to give since we've chatted about this, I'll still do a quick recap. Mind and the ego of the mind is all about managing, keeping this body alive and comfortable. That's what it's obsessed with. And you just have to recognize that's what it's going to do. And that is a very important part of the ego. If you dissolve that, you're going to be crossing a street, you're going to get run over by a bus. Well, if you want to be that type of a vegetable, uh, it's your choice. It's the planet of free will and the universe of free will. So then the next level, soul, as I've already touched on, the ego of the soul, if we get stuck in that, it just wants to have maximum experiences and some really intense experiences. But that could be discomforting and psychologically and emotionally traumatizing for the mind ego and for the body. If you start like sleeping around with homeless people just to get a discernment that maybe that's not a good idea, that's a strange way to gather experience. You can gather by observing. So the soul wants to have as many connections and interaction as possible. And if there are some really intense and nasty ones, even better. So if we get stuck in that, and I'm talking about in harmonies of the ego, because the harmony of the ego is the harmonious version of soul ego is to connect you with the right type of business partners, friends, where you harmoniously can go through evolutionary experience. Same as the harmonious version of the mind ego is make sure you don't get run over by a fucking bus, because that would be a very dumb way to go. And then we get to the spirit ego. Spirit ego is basically the closest energy that's closest to the energy of absolute or the creator or God or whatever. And it's closest to the state of energy that is fully aligned with universal laws. And hence, the inharmonious expression of spirit ego is to start crusades, jihad, and etc. Anything that is not aligned with universal laws, fucking kill and destroy. And that's how all these spiritual wars were started. Spiritual wars. Here we go. Even the term, right? Because spirit wants everything aligned as fast as possible to. That's in harmonious expression. A harmonious expression is it is connected to the state of God, where you fully feel and understanding how you should be and how the environment should be according to universal laws of creator. And then you gently and harmoniously and constructively start organizing first yourself according to universal laws, then your home, then let's say your, if there is a partner or whatever in like your vicinity, your surrounding, but you're not doing it by imposing things on them or punishing, by just being open to share if they ask. And that is a harmonious, constructive way to bring the spirit to this sector of the universe. So ultimately, spiritual person is the person who realized all of those levels. Hence, what we chatted about, develop discerning mind, how to operate all three egos in sync and harmoniously together. This way, that human being starts living in multiple dimensions at the same time harmoniously and experiences the ultimate state of happiness, um, feeling limitless, hence feeling a lot of power, which rarely gets used because the person also realized power is not the way to change things, introduce change or transformation. So it's the state of happiness and being limitless, which is used very thoughtfully because there is that developed discernment.
All right. Well, there we go.
Here we are, Burning
Spirituality
Man.
101. Burning
Oh,
Man, demonic entities, all of it.
exactly. One more thing I wanted to touch on psychedelics. Um, or plant medicine. It's very important. And by the way, it's the same as like the ashrams, guru-based teachings, and etc. Right? It's not like they don't have value. Like when you're doing ayahuasca or mushrooms, people do heal a lot of trauma, and that's, by the way, what gets them caught in that egregor as well, right? Because they do make progress, they get better, vibration increases, and etc. It's not like there's no value. Like it is an instrument, but it is an instrument that you have to understand the side effects of, and it is an instrument that only gets you to a specific level and then creates invisible glass ceiling. And you get to that vibration of, let's say, 6, 5, 7, and then you keep going there thinking, oh, I'm almost there, I'm just like 5 more ceremonies and I'm going to be fully harmonized and healed. That is an illusionary what is it called, treadmill that you're running on. That egregor will never lead you to what I've just described, to being fully spiritual. It will only get you to a specific part. And that's why I call it illusionary awakening. It gives you the first few steps. And then because it was so powerful, the first few steps are always so powerful for everyone who's going through awakening. And that person gets stuck, and then they get stuck in this mindset, oh, just one more ceremony and I'm going to get done with it. Nope. It will never help you get there. It will just recreate more issues. It will heal stuff you've already healed, create perception you haven't healed it. It will introduce new distortions so that you can keep coming for it, so you can keep bringing energy to that. Well, it's kind of very similar if we draw a parallel with religion. Religion is the same thing. Everybody's a sinner, and like it gives you a lift, but you're still a fucking sinner. So you get up and you stay there and you go in a fucking circle and you never actually become sovereign, because you gotta, pray to this church and pray to this pope or priest or whoever fuck they are, right? So you keep bringing your energy, plus you keep bringing your energy in the form of money with donations and blah blah blah. And but in reality, you get on the same treadmill, and that's why I put all of these egregors or structures more or less in the same bucket with different flavors, because they result in the same state. And the journey is very similar. It gives you a lift, you make progress, you hit a glass ceiling. And if you don't develop the discernment to seek beyond that, to seek knowledge, to seek other modalities, and that's as simple as that, go explore the world. It gave you the benefit, be grateful, thank it, and move on. Continue seeking until and a great indicator in life is a consistent state of happiness. With that said, plant medicine create an illusion of that as well. Basically, people start thinking, because it dissolves bunch of ego, but not a destructive part of ego that needs to be harmonized, but constructive. And the person becomes a bit more of a vegetable, and they perceive that as a state of happiness. but in
Mm.
reality, they're just like in a state of fucking vegetable. And it's like,
Yeah,
oh,
yeah.
I'm not getting triggered. The reason you're not getting triggered because there's almost none of you left. This is like same as a stone sitting on the side of the road. When it gets kicked, it doesn't get fucking triggered. So do you want to be that? Right? And so that's on a psychedelics. And one more thing I want to drop in, since we're on this, there are many meditation practices and maybe egregors around it, meditation practices or ashrams and etc. that teach, or even psychedelics or plant medicine do that, create a state of takes you into a transcendental state, takes you, basically throws you up into other parts of consciousness that are higher vibration than your current state. It's like basically boosters that launch you to a high vibration for 5 minutes. And then you basically, in that space, in that consciousness, you do feel bliss because it's super high vibration. So people think that's what their state becomes, or people now understand better what that bliss state is. And by the way, the reason psychedelics, plant medicine, or other or places where a guru or a coach can kick you up into that state, so you experience at least once or a few times, because then at least you know how to get there. Ultimately, you should get there using your own feet, basically on your own. What happens, all the people become servants or slaves to all of those modalities or egregors, because that's the only way they can get them there. So hence, the only way for a person to experience oneness and this bliss and etc. is either through some kind of, let's call it, meditation practice that they get addicted to in the group, usually because group energy intensifies, they go up and then they come down. At the end of the day, you're supposed to experience, and when I say persistent state of happiness, is basically that state all the time without any kind of practices. But people post plant medicine, some of their neural networks get burnt, and as I mentioned, they become kind of vegetable, and they think that's that bliss state, but it's not. It's just you're
Yeah.
a fucking vegetable that can be kicked around. So there's a lot of nuance to all these topics. Use those instruments, and those instruments are great, but be discerning, be conscious, be thoughtful, know when to stop, know when to move on, and don't get stuck in any of them. If you start finding you're starting to get stuck in, or the word I would use, addicted. Oh, I cannot do anything without this guru, or I need to do mushrooms every 2 weeks, otherwise I cannot heal myself. If you cannot harmonize, transform yourself, being 100% sober, you haven't learned shit. If you cannot achieve at least intermittent states of happiness without some kind of ashram group meditation or whatever fuck it is, you haven't learned anything. The ultimate state where you're going to, you do no practices, you take no substances, and you're at peace, fully balanced, and you experience that state of happiness.
Okay. Onward and upward to happiness.
Yeah, as VCs in San Francisco would say, up and to the right.
Ah, ah, ah. Yes, yes, yes.
Since we started with Silicon Valley people and pilgrimage to Burning Man, might as well end with that.
Yeah, yeah. Up and to the right. All right. Well, that was this week's episode. I'm glad that we were both thinking about Burning Man, because yeah, it just popped in my mind and it was like, okay, this has to be the topic of the day. So
Great topic, great questions. I hope this is useful for people. If anybody has additional questions, feel free to leave comments and find our contact information and about the channel. And yeah, enjoy all what this planet has to offer, but consciously, and use it as an instrument to your evolution. Every experience is a powerful experience. There's no bad or wrong experience. If you had it, that means there is a reason for you to have it. If you got lost because of it, find somebody who can help you to get unlost and actually convert it into constructive experience.